So in I Got a Cheat Skill in Another World episode 4, Yuuya ends up taking out the trash. We get kind of thrown into a Tokyo Revengers situation where we got a little gang come in on the school grounds, and honestly, after training in an isekai world like he has, Buddy drops from the 4th floor down and just, honestly, the smooth moves. He already was the prince of the entire school, but goddamn, when you see him just zipping around, at one point there's a motorcycle trying to run him over and he's just dodging and weaving. Buddy blows himself up, and by the end, I mean, that was just awesome. It was goofy in a lot of ways. It was like cartoonishly evil with the siblings getting so upset that a woman made fun of them for not being worthy of her school, so they hire a gang, who honestly, the gang did look intimidating, they just looked a little goofy themselves. And by the end, they're basically kissing the ground Yuuya walks on, because at that point, what can you do when literally the person who you thought was trash beat an entire gang up and honestly can't even hate you then because, well, he's just a nice guy that values family a lot more than the trash than you. And I'm like, okay, this show, it plays by every trope and trend that you can expect, but Yuuya as a person is such a rootable character that you just love watching this isekai. Full live reaction episode 4 is available on my Patreon if you do want to see my full uncut thoughts. I love this episode. I had a filling done yesterday, so I only really had the energy and pain tolerance to do a couple of videos yesterday, so I decided to push Cheat Skill 2 today. And honestly, this episode was great. I mean, every time I try to browse conversations surrounding this one, whether Reddit, whether other social media, is kind of the equivalent of watching monkeys at a zoo, in my opinion. Like, it just feels like everyone just points out the tropes rather than pointing out the fact that Yuuya as a character navigates said tropes into something that's more interesting than just your generic isekai of the season. And what I like is that, you know, for over a month now, we've been watching this character who started off as someone abused, beaten, robbed, and just everything else in between that made life living hell. And in this episode, we actually feel like not only is he in a better headspace, he's not perfect, I mean, seen by the trauma of when he knew he wanted to protect them, but he almost was being held down, the distorted viewpoints, you know, thinking of his siblings, thinking of everyone who's hurt him. He's not perfect, and that's one of the key things that keeps a show like this fresh, is that they don't magically make him get over things because he's hot, and also he's mad talented now, whether stopping a soccer ball from kicking someone in the face, not by grabbing it, by kicking it and scoring your own goal. No, like, he's flashy as hell, but it's not because he's necessarily trying to be or he's trying to prove something. A lot of it's now just instincts, but he still feels weird. He still feels shitty about himself, and that's an amazing aspect that separates immediately this show from the normal crowd at face value. But what I really like is seeing how there's these genuine moments of happiness. If we rewind 2 episodes back when he first approached the school, right? He went into that classroom, the classroom was dead silent, they're looking at him like, oh my god, there's literally a K-pop star in our classroom. He obviously was uncomfortable and he just felt like garbage, right? He felt like the out-of-place fat kid because he still hates himself, right? But what happens in this episode when he comes back to school now that he has a few friends in the classroom, now that he's accustomed with the chairman, you know, he's excited for school. He's actually excited to see what's going to happen. And these little moments, whether it's him busting out laughing after, you know, you have this like pretty boy who basically almost hit the girl in the face with a soccer ball. He busts out laughing there. There's these genuine moments that like we're seeing him become more of a person, right? So you have the fantasy world where you have like political marriages and potential sabotage and assassination attempts. His normal world is basically everything that he's tried to avoid his entire life. Now he's actually kind of excited to go to school and live a life, but still having those issues that are holding him down. And normally I would say, you know, out of the 2 world, which is the most interesting to follow right now? Probably the taste of the fantasy world that we've seen. There's more action, there's more, you know, political sabotage stuff. And then there's school stuff. But the reason the school stuff is important and why I'm glad they're focusing more on that is because to him, that's the most important area. The thing he used to run away from his entire life now is the thing that he's actually going to school happy about. He's not perfect and he won't be perfect by the end of 12 episodes, but he's getting there slowly but surely. And I love the fact that they used the fantasy world as a way to build up his confidence in a different way, and then that transitions into new confidence in his normal reality. They ended last episode with the declaration of, I want to marry you, Of course, it wasn't going to go over that smoothly, but you can look at a scene like that where, you know, you have the first princess of a kingdom, but apparently second in line for the throne, as they say. I'm not sure if this is a common occurrence with her of anyone she gets enthralled by where she tries to marry, but no matter what, I think this is going to be her new squeeze. She's going to try, she's going to hustle, but at the end of the day, Yuuya, even though he technically falls under that oblivious category of, you know, we see him get flustered around women, but at the same time, we know he's oblivious to the number of women who are basically planting their flag saying, hey, here's a romance path, can you go down it, bro? The reason why watching Yuuya kind of deal with this harem is easier to stomach and honestly I find enjoyable compared to a lot of shows where you're like, why do all these women like this dense MC? It makes no sense. Is one, we like Yuuya as a person, and two, his reason for being oblivious makes a lot of sense given how many people ignored him and those who didn't before would bully and torment him. So for him, this is all kind of a new playing field. It doesn't come across as the awkward virgin trope as normal, but more so, man, it's all because of episode 1. The fact that they actually let him, you know, we didn't just say, oh, here's a fat kid who got hit by a car within 2 minutes and now he's hot. No, like we understood the torment, and the fact that each episode, since being turned into this hot model, he still feels like he has internal struggles. And that's honestly what makes it pop, right? And they're even doing some good world building in the shadows as well. So one thing I've been pretty interested in is the time discrepancy. So when he goes through that door, whether to fantasy world to normal Earth, how does time work? Well, we kind of get the confirmation in this episode without them explicitly saying anything. So basically, Owen, the main knight here who's trying to get the princess back home, is saying, hey, we want you to come to the castle. King wants to give the thanks, right? And it's going to take 5 days to do that. So he's like, oh, well, let's do that on Golden Week. Oh, let's just push it a little bit because obviously they're not going to know what that is. So what that says is that when he spends time in this fantasy world, the time also continues to go in his normal world. So by pushing moments like that, you know, it's interesting how he has to find a way to balance it. Like after school, he can go kill some monsters, but if he starts building a life in this fantasy world too, it's going to be very challenging eventually for him to balance. Right now, he's obviously more committed to the school setting, but eventually, especially once he gets thrown into the more sabotage nature, which they're highlighting someone's trying to kill Lexia, is this a brother who basically feels like she's a threat to the throne even though she's second in line? I don't know. Is it just someone trying to kill her because of some betrayal? We don't know, but they're setting a lot of stages that eventually it's going to make going back to and from quite as easy, and, you know, friendships, relationships, family, you know, why did you blow me off, Yuuya? Well, I was killing an ogre and an orc. Oh, I can't tell you that, right? It is going to get messy. But they're taking their time. They're not just throwing him into the thick of it. And honestly, that's what makes a show like this pop and why it's kind of exhausting trying to talk about this show outside my channel, because like it just feels like monkeys at a zoo just being like, oh, it's just the typical tropes you see. But it's like, no, Yuuya as a character is making this so much more compelling to me. I like the fact that they're clever about their production. They're not trying to say we can be Demon Slayer where every single action scene can be stretched out into a 5-minute Sakuga fest. So instead they make certain shots really well animated, and then they'll kind of do like a little shaky cam transition to give the sense of like velocity and speed, but at the same time they're not actually animating all that much, but it works in its favor. The thing that's a little annoying, but at the same time I think goes to show just how good of a person Yuuya is what happens with the siblings. Now, they are cartoonishly evil through and through, and when Buddy was getting choked and then he kicks the sister away, I was like, hey, equal rights here. They're both getting sent to the Shadow Realm. He ends up stopping, which it makes total sense. He's someone who actually values family just because he was raised a good person. Obviously, I'm of the belief that family is what you make it, and these type of people cut that toxicity out. They were way too bad for you to ever change, but everyone's different. There are some people who can forgive worse things than what they've done to Yuuya, and I've seen it firsthand, and I've seen the changes. I just personally, I can't do that. Better person than me, Yuuya. But at the end of the day, do I think they actually changed? Probably not, but if they did, I mean, at the very least, that's one less bullshit thing to deal with in his life. And honestly, I like what they did with this episode. It got goofy, it got insane, but man, I don't know, I was a little swooned myself when he jumped out of the fourth story there and was just like, all right, I'm gonna go kick a biker gang's ass. And I'm like, all right, I love this show. But let me know what you thought down below. Drop a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here, ring that bell, of course, so you can get notified when I upload on the channel. And like I mentioned, we do that full live reaction available on my Patreon. And while you're there, you can also get a video shout out. So today, we have Purple Kush, Kevin, Ryan Feather, and Samuel Valdez. So I appreciate the support, everyone, and please take care and have a good one.